sing a song? Yeah.
You don't want to do that. You haven't heard that before, have you? If I'm speaking at the end, I'll go ahead and sing and y'all can clear out. My name is Paul Simon. I'm running for the 295th Civil District Court. I want to thank y'all for coming out here and letting us speak to you tonight about these judicial races. Following Mr. Costello, and you're going to be hearing from the mayors, one of the difficult things about explaining to people why I want to be a judge and why I think it'd be a good judge is I can't make promises like I'm going to fix the drainage. What I can promise you is that I'm going to be fair. What I can promise you is that I'm going to be dedicated. What I can promise you is that I'm going to be faithful to the law. And you don't need to just take my word for this. You can take the word of the people that have started to endorse me. I've gotten the endorsement from the former chair of the Harris County Democratic Party, a guy by the name of John Odom. Councilwoman Melissa Noriega has endorsed me. And we've also gotten the endorsement of Arthur Schechter, who was an ambassador under Bill Clinton. My life story, and I've met some of you before, and some of you may have heard this, but I just want to briefly tell you all for those who haven't met me before. I grew up here in Houston. I was born in Ohio, grew up in Houston. And I was one of those kids when I was 18 that knew better than my dad. And when my dad told me it was either his rules and he'd pay for school or it'd be my rules and I could pay for school on my own, I knew I was smarter than him, so I told him I didn't need his help. And then I quickly learned that I wasn't smarter than him. And what that did for me, though, was it forced me to put myself through school. And I worked my way through the University of Houston. I graduated there with honors. I then went to South Texas College of Law and graduated near the top of my class there. And from there, I went to the Court of Appeals. I've been in the legal profession. When I was working my way through school, I was a paralegal for about 10 years before going to law school. And what I've seen in these 20 years that I've been in the practice is a change. When I started, it was a more moderate bench. And then in '94, the Republicans took over. And what you'll see on my card at the very top there is the words that we say at the beginning of this meeting tonight, the Pledge of Allegiance, the final words from the Pledge of Allegiance, which is justice for all. And I believe in that. I've been in courts where I'm listening to judges not follow the law, not follow what the law is, not following what the law should be. And it frustrates me, and that's why I'm running for judge. I think a lot of the candidates in this room share that experience, so I'm not unique in that respect. The last thing I want to leave, before I leave, and I'll answer your question, yes. But the last thing I want to say is, on this Veterans Day, one of the things that veterans did for us was they sacrificed for things that have happened in the past. But those sacrifices really are for things that happen in the future. And we in this country get to determine our future by voting. And what I saw in the mayor's race was disappointing to me. 20% turnout or a little bit less. Following on the heels of the Obama campaign in 2008, where we saw much greater participation. More than 1 million people cast their votes. It's tough to get to know all of the judges, and it's tough to try to figure out who you should vote for in these judicial races. One thing I think you can look at is who's showing up to these things. I've got my contact information up in front of that. I've said this before, I think this is ethical. I will buy anyone coffee and donuts if they want to sit down with me and get a group of friends together and let me explain to them why this 2010 election is so important, not just in my race, but for Texas in general. A little bit more about myself and about how the courts operate. And if any of y'all have any questions, I'm happy to take them. I've already answered your question. You can ask another one if you
Okay,
want.
I'll ask a question. I know that as a judge, you can't do anything about this. I'm just curious on your opinion. When we have a trial by jury, it states that we have a jury of our peers. Okay? And I understand you go through the voir dire and the lawyer and the prosecutor have the opportunity to strike. Do you think, in your opinion, that a jury of one's peers should possibly also include that person's gender or ethnic group?
Well, yeah, not only do I think that the law says that, and it's illegal to strike people because of their ethnicity, because of religious beliefs and things like that. So yes, I think what the Constitution actually talks about and what the cases that interpret that is a fair jury, an impartial jury. And what we need, and one of the things, and I don't mean to digress too much on this, but what we saw with Sotomayor and the appointment to the Supreme Court, her appointment is going to change that court simply because the beliefs of somebody who's never sat on that court before will be heard. So if you have an all-white jury, and I'm talking about, I do civil litigation, but if you have an all-white jury trying, or the jury on a case involving a racial minority, or an all-male jury in a case involving a woman, I don't think they get the perspectives of the way other people's lives are. And so I think it's important that we have a diverse party. I think it's very important that we have diverse juries, because what we should get is 12 members from the community who can look at you and look at somebody else and say which one of you they think they believe, and then let them render their verdict. You got a question too?
Well, I'm going to drop it because you're running for a civil court, right?
Yes.
Never mind.
Last time I've got some cards outside. Anybody who I didn't get a card to, they're sitting outside. I appreciate you picking it up.